All right, let's go to Paul Watson. His story is the top story on Infowars.com, and it's also on DrudgeReport.com in the middle column. Boston bomber believes he was a victim of mind control. Boston bomber believes he was a victim of mind control. Now, here is Paul Watson. This is in the Boston Globe, but Paul Watson gives background. The Unabomber was under CIA mind control. That came out in the LA Times. The supposed Aurora shooter said he was under mind control. And now it comes out in the Boston Globe. He believed he was under mind control. Folks, he was under a CIA-funded program to Chechnya. This is literal born supremacy type stuff. This is amazing. Paul Watson, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here, Alex.
Break it down, my friend.
Yeah, this is the result of a 5-month investigation by the Boston Globe, and they basically talked to a whole host of people who intimately knew the Zarnev brothers. One of them, Donald Larking, a 67-year-old who attended the Boston Mosque with Tamerlan Zarnev, told the Boston Globe he believed in majestic mind control, which is a way of breaking down a person and creating an alternative personality with which they must coexist. You can give a signal, a phrase, or a gesture and bring out the alternate personality and make them do things. Tamerlan thought someone might have done that to him. So they're talking about trigger phrases, trigger words, trigger images and symbols that make people do violent actions as a result of mind control, which, as you just mentioned, in the case of James Holmes, the Batman shooter, he said to an inmate of his that he was, quote, programmed to carry out the massacre by an evil therapist who brainwashed him with the aid of neuro-linguistic programming. So again, we're talking about trigger phrases used to turn to shift from one personality to another that's been created by mind control, which is interesting because we know that Holmes, immediately before the massacre began, took a phone call, was talking to somebody on the phone, then began with the shooting. Now, there was a British program, a television special, which aired a few years ago in the UK by quite a famous hypnotist called Derren Brown. And he was able to actually brainwash somebody, mind control them to carry out an assassination, which the subject thought was real, an assassination of a famous person in public. And the trigger for carrying out that assassination was a woman dressed in a polka dot skirt. So when it actually came to the assassination, the woman walked in the polka dot dress, and this individual, who beforehand was completely calm and normal, who thought that he was just attending a theater show, pulled out a gun and assassinated in his own mind. The shots were obviously blanks, but he thought he was really assassinating a public figure. So these trigger words, these trigger images are proven in MK Ultra CIA mind control law to actually work, and they can actually create these mind control assassins, which of course happened in the case of Sirhan Sirhan and the assassination of RFK.
And by the way, this is not our opinion now. Again, it came out in the LA Times, you might add this, that Theodore Kaczynski on record was in the MK Ultra program. And so undoubtedly, they're bare minimum using it to have them there drugged out of their minds, to blame them for things that later happened, but to also carry out attacks. And because the general public's been mesmerized by television and is generally already in a near sleepwalking haze. People say the public's in a haze. You can't get through to them. Because if you watch 3-4 hours of television a day, you literally go into a zombified state. That's why children, you can't talk to them if they're watching TV. You're like, hey, don't you hear me? Their mouths are hanging open. The flicker rate is set just like a flashing light to literally put them into that state. So the public is so weak-minded now that, as you pointed out, hypnotists can find highly suggestible people and have them commit assassinations just off hypnotism. You add drugs, and of course this guy was under a top Air Force colonel in a brain interface DARPA program. Now imagine, you get put into this, you get hypnotized, next you're drugged. They sealed his notebook. They've declared national security on that. I mean, Paul, there's really no doubt now. But again, they know the public's so dumb, they're hiding this in plain view, Paul. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Well, I mean, talk about hiding it in plain view. You remember the guy they arrested during the manhunt for the Boston bombers, the so-called naked guy who was supposed to be a different person, you can see clearly that it's Tamerlan Zarnev. They arrested him. He was completely unharmed, uninjured. And then, you know, a few hours later, he died in a police shootout. See his autopsy photos. He's riddled with bullet holes.
And I predicted, they'd try to kill the other brother, which they knew was in the boat. They shot it, and by the grace of God, they only hit him a few times. He got out. Then I said, "Oh my gosh, they're gonna shut him up." And then they did, but still, he's saying he didn't do it. He says not guilty.
And the friend of the bombers, Todashev, you know, they held him in his own apartment for 5 days, interrogated him, and then just shot him in the head. Claimed he lunged at them with a knife, later had to admit that was completely made up, and just no explanation, just shot him in the head. He was an eyewitness to what went on. So
this is literally the Bourne legacy. This is literally the Bourne legacy. This is literal mind control out in the open, targeting the dumbed-down general public. They know we know. We know the drill. We know how they did it. We know he was CIA. The little brother was, oh my gosh, stay there, Paul. This is so evil, ladies and gentlemen.
Now you can watch The Alex Jones Show live as it happens at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at Infowars.com/show.
And again, there's hundreds of different types of mind control, from just advertising down to conditioning, down to drugging. And it's on record they're drugging most of the U.S. troops now in combat with all sorts of psychotropic, speed drugs, hallucinogens, and not just the amphetamines, but the opiates, to then have them all strung out and screwed up so they can then control them and say, oh, you want pain pills for your depression? And then list them as drug addicts and then remove their Second Amendment once they get out of the military. But this is the type of intel that we now have that can turn this around. And look, the average person in the FBI, the average person even in the CIA is totally compartmentalized. And it's not even a bad person either. They don't like what's going on. This is really evil, what's happening. It's a very small group doing this, and we have to become aware of it and boldly expose it, or we have no future. Paul Watson of PrisonPlanet.com and Infowars.com breaking this down here today. We have the other angle of who they're picking for their mind control. And it's clear, if you go back, it's the same story with the situation at Littleton. Clearly they had a federal mind control program under death education going on there. Half the school was empty that day. There were 247 bombs found in the building. CBS News, that got covered up. They were supposed to kill hundreds. They got set up. There were other shooters. They admit the SWAT team shot several of the kids. Rocky Mountain News. Media works to keep mass shooters' profiles secret. The profile is a video game head goth who's into the occult, who they then grab and program because they're already unstable and ready. Separately, though, or their research students in advanced secret programs, the Unabomber, Theodore Kaczynski, Holmes from Colorado, Aurora, that's the other MO. They get research college students, Zarnev, Tamerlan, Zarnev. He was in a research program sent by the State Department out of that key command base there in D.C., Georgetown. And you've got that in your article. So, Paul, this is really amazing. They either get drug head, devil worshippers that already play 10 hours a game, 10 hours a day of video games. I'm trying to talk fast, folks, and messing up, trying to get to it all here. Who are devil worshippers and already on drugs and are naturally programmed by kind of the ambient brainwashing system, or they get people in research programs as their cover. Paul Watson.
Well, the question is, Alex, why do they need to stage all this? Well, it's for the security state. They need these incidents to keep the level of fear-mongering high so the general public will accept the kind of security measures that, you know, companies linked to the military-industrial complex make massive profits out of, and the government itself gets more power out of it. If there weren't these kind of incidents, their slush fund would be instantly terminated. And, you know, it stretches back all the way to Sirhan, because 3 months before RFK was assassinated, he disappeared for 3 months, Sirhan, in the hands of this psychologist working for the CIA who actually later turned up dead himself in a hotel room of a suspected suicide. So the people who are actually doing the brainwashing end up dead as well. But then you've got that whole investigation into, the two shooters at the RFK assassination, Sirhan being in a trance before he pulled the trigger. And his lawyers, with increasing conviction, are proving the fact that he was probably the first mind control patsy. And as he said, it's not always people who go out and do the killings. It's the need to create patsies so then the actual operation can take place.
Hi, I'm InfoWars reporter Leanne McAdoo, and as we age, it is inevitable that we may experience a slowdown in vitality, energy, sexual drive, and overall well-being. The reality is that in addition to the natural aging process, the experts admit that our body is continually being hit with a barrage of what's known as gender-bending chemicals, and that's just for starters. So avoiding these chemicals has always been really important to me, and that's why I was so excited to speak with Dr. Edward Group about what's really going on, specifically to find a solution to the root issue. And what I found was that as experts around the world are now revealing, core hormone levels in many men and women are dropping, but especially men. Testosterone, growth hormone, DHEA, all are being affected. Introducing InfoWars Life Super Male Vitality. Fusing herbs and other essential ingredients to help support your body's natural hormone balance. Developed by Dr. Edward Group and produced at a highly accredited natural products manufacturer, Super Male Vitality is designed to aid the body in ways that may support normal testosterone levels in men. Focus on improving your sexual vitality with the stimulation of libido and sex drive. Deliver hard-hitting benefits while completely free of GMOs, gluten, and harmful ingredients. And it's all made here in the USA and supports our operation. Single men, married men, I recommend that you get a hold of InfoWarsLife.com Super Male Vitality today, and your woman won't be disappointed.
Yeah, here's the Daily Mail. Bobby Kennedy's assassin still claims he was victim of mind control and his gun didn't fire a fatal shot. A new appeal after parole is denied. He doesn't claim that. The local police report said it was a different caliber shot RFK in the back and back of the neck and head. And at the same time, his gun got pinned by a bystander when the guy that shot RFK in the back was a CIA Skunks Works worker. That's a secret aircraft facility worker. And at the same time, 3 famous CIA agents were later documented to be in the crowd at the ballroom right before this happened. So obviously they'd killed his brother, the president. They were going to kill him. Watson, in the 3-4 minutes we've got left in this short segment, he was seen with the lady in the polka dot dress. She gives him a drink, obviously, of some type of amnesiac. He's given his programming cue, and he goes and then plays the part of the patsy. That's where you left off.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying with the television show. They recreated that almost exactly, the girl with the polka dot dress. She was the trigger for him to go and pull the actual trigger and be the patsy for the assassination. And then, of course, the Church Committee and Rockefeller Commission investigations in '75 were preceded 2 years beforehand by CIA Director Richard Helms ordering the destruction of all files related to MKUltra in 1973, 2 years before these investigations took place. So whereas a lot of information about them came out from whistleblowers, most of the actual physical evidence was destroyed by the CIA 2 years beforehand. So it's amazing. But the other point you made before the break was, you're in the FBI, not the lower level FBI aren't involved in this kind of thing. That was brought home to me today. There's a CBS News interview with the NSA. They got inside access to the NSA building, and they were like, this is not going to be a puff piece. Of course, it was a total puff piece. But they were asking the director of the NSA questions, Alexander. And in one case, they asked him a question about Snowden, and he had to turn around and ask somebody in, quote, the shadowy group of figures behind him, if it was okay for him to talk about a certain issue relating to Snowden. So the director of the NSA is having to ask his superiors in the NSA permission to speak about a certain subject on CBS News, and he's supposed to be the top guy. So there are guys above him. So again, it brings home
these
the point.
top guys don't, in most cases, know anything that's going on. I mean, that's on record. That's how the globalists run these operations.
They just read the teleprompters.
That's right. You've got permanent members in the shadow government burrowed in like ticks.
And those are the kind of guys who are going to be involved in MK Ultra and these programs. That's why they destroy the files before they can be properly investigated. But again, with Jared Lee Loughner, the gunman who shot Gabby Giffords, he was obsessed with mind control. And then you tie that in with the psychiatric drugs, which induce violence, and you know it's a cocktail for carnage, basically.
Well, here's the deal: the shoot 'em up video games, and the video game heads get mad at me when I say this. I'm not saying take away your murder training tools. My whole point is First Amendment. You've got a right to it. I have a right. They think censorship is disagreeing with them. No, censorship is stopping you. The shoot-'em-up games were invented to create instinctive shooting, to create killing machines. You put devil-worshipping people on serotonin reuptake inhibitors that make you kill people on this. It makes you a programmed assassin. These games were made to program Marine Corps and Army killers to instinctively kill. Then the government takes kids that already fit the profile, drug them up even more, and point them at the target. It's very simple.
And that's why they use them for drone pilots as well.
That's right. They recruit their drone pilots out of the pool of video game heads, just like The Last Starfighter, just like Ender's Game. They had declassified plans before those movies and books came out in the 80s that was what video games were for, to have interactive giant game grids to pick the people they want for the future and to train the computers. The computers are all wargaming what you do. You won't be needed in the future. I want to open the phones up today. And when I say first-time callers, I really mean first-time callers. And then in the next hour, I'll have a free-for-all. But I want to give first-time callers out there. We don't screen your calls. We just ask you to have a good telephone and get to your point. Call in and give us your take on everything we just covered in the last hour. The fact that the Boston Globe is now reporting that the supposed lead Boston bomber, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, believed that he was under MK Ultra mind control. Ladies and gentlemen, he was under a secret State Department program run by the CIA out of Georgetown University to send him to be with Chechen rebels in Chechnya. That is in the major British and German newspapers months ago. There was a drill of a bombing at the Boston Marathon that was used to have everybody in place. In case anybody got caught carrying it out, they would just say it was part of a drill. You had the stand down of the police. You had all the other people with the backpacks. You had the cover-up. This is really incredible when you add to it all the other bombers and people and all the other mass shooters who it turns out were in CIA programs. And this comes out, and then literally no one gets in trouble. There are no investigations. Remember, the FBI lied and said, we don't know who Tamerlan Tsarnaev was. We never heard of him. Turned out, I said 2 years. It was actually 3 years before. They were in contact with him, in meetings with him, debriefing him about his trips to Chechnya. And the family is on record saying that he was basically working for the government. And then I call the family back, the aunt and others, and they start crying and have basically been threatened. Yes, I'm ready to come on your show. Call back 20 minutes later. My children, no, they will get them. They will smash me, they said. No. Oh. I mean, this is the life I live, living in the real world, ladies and gentlemen. And now the Boston Globe's reporting this.
Now you can watch the InfoWars Nightly News streaming live as it happens for free.
Check it out at Infowars.com/show.